The Panthers are set to be featured once again on season 2 of Face Off Inside the NHL, and the roster has been cut to 55 players.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, September 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you follow me on X at Monoman12. That is Jacob Winans. You could follow him on X at JakeW_8. Joining me on another edition of Winans Wednesday. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. And it's on a preseason game day, as tonight the Florida Panthers will be taking on the Carolina Hurricanes in Raleigh as we are going to be through 3 preseason games out of 6 after tonight. But Jacob, 13 days till opening night, Sam Reinhart days, as I like to say. And I really, not only can I not wait until the regular season, but I feel so relaxed, at ease when it comes to just the preparation for the regular season. And I really can't wait for this individual journey when it comes to the team, because it's going to be different from the years past.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most stress-free I've ever been going into a season, and for good reason. They're back-to-back champions. It feels like anything this year is gravy, but also at the same time, you know the competitiveness, the drive, the way that they approach the game. It's not going to change, and I feel like there's just an established system and an established culture now. So I don't worry about the preparation. I have total confidence and trust in Paul Maurice and the coaching staff, and I have total confidence and trust in the players to ramp up as necessary. And I think the way these training camps run has been fantastic since Paul Maurice has taken over, and I expect more of the same. It's a well-oiled machine now.
Yeah, no doubt. And the main guys did scrimmage against each other yesterday, so it's not they'll be prepared when the season does eventually come. But yeah, let's talk about a little bit of things off the ice for the Panthers, as far as the fun they've been having, and also the features that the things that they'll be featured in. So yeah, Matthew Tkachuk was the star as far as being in front of the cameras for College game day, and also the Florida Panthers being at field level for the game between the Miami Hurricanes and the Florida Gators. And even Mike Ryan of the Dan Lepetard show had a picture of the guys in the parking lot, everyone throwing up to you, with the exception of Mackie Samoskevich, putting the M for University of Michigan. And then Anton Lundell calling himself a Canes fan, talking about how much he's been missing out on it, and not realizing how big college football is down here. But I think of for people who might be up north of the border of us, think about how important junior hockey is to Canadians up there. So I just think it's a great comparison as far as the next wave of talent. And also a little bit of a tease on Jessica Blaylock during the media availability as she was doing the Gator Chomp.
Yeah, I saw that, but yeah, I think that's super cool. Especially guys that are locked in long term, that have contracts that are going to keep them here in Florida for a long time. It's really cool seeing them involved in the community, getting out there, being present, and sort of not necessarily making the rounds, but just sort of showing up and being a part of more than just hockey here. It's great for growing the game. It's great for extending the reach of the team and the franchise. And I'm definitely not too mad about them being Miami Hurricanes fans either. As you know, I'm a huge Hurricanes fan, so I'll gladly take Lundell and the rest of the guys on the bandwagon. And in a couple weeks, I'm very much hoping that what Matthew Tkachuk predicted on College Game Day is true. That they'll head up to Tallahassee and stomp FSU there at Doak.
Yeah, which funny enough, the viewership for College Game Day for the final hour hit the second most viewed in the history of it, and I tweeted the Matthew Tkachuk effect. But let's talk about more features of what the Florida Panthers will be experiencing this season, of what's going to be released. So next Friday, October 3rd. It'll be the release of season 2 of Face Off Inside the NHL that will be released on Amazon Prime Video, and for the second consecutive year, Matthew Tkachuk will be featured on it. It's going to be more of a spotlight on the brother Brady, but Matthew is going to be a big part of it. It's just going to talk about the struggles of a season, fatherhood, and then obviously Matthew Tkachuk is going to be interviewed as part of that. That's going to be at the first episode of the series in Face Off Inside the NHL, and then the second episode that the Panthers are going to be featured in is episode 6, titled "The Rat Kings," which is going to be talking about Matthew Tkachuk with Brad Marchand, about just teaming up together and all the battles that they've had in the past, and now joining forces in South Florida. And the second part of that will also feature Zach Hyman from the Edmonton Oilers. So that's going to be a 2-for-1 episode for episode 6 of Face Off Inside the NHL. But once again, when you win, you're gonna get more of the spotlight, and that's once again, and the fact is, with these brothers being the superstars, Team USA, what happened at Four Nations, it's another great opportunity to market these two guys along with Brad Marchand.
Yeah, the popularity is through the roof right now, and I think the Panthers, if you look at them compared to really any other team around the league, the marketability and the I guess the lack of shyness to the cameras and to the moment, it's at an all-time high right now with Tkachuk, of course, but then you add a personality like Marchand. You go back and look at the playoffs last year, and you think about all the storylines surrounding Sam Bennett and the way the playoffs went for him, and everything that sort of went into that, the physical play, the Anthony Stolar situation, and there was a ton of stuff that sort of went into this Panthers having the Rat King identity and just kind of becoming the bully of the NHL. And I think the more that the series can capture that, the better. I think the Panthers have sort of taken on that identity. They're not hiding from it. They're not shy about it. And I think I think every good story needs a villain. And I think the Panthers are the villains of the NHL right now. And I really do hope the series kind of puts that on display a little bit. I don't think there's anything malicious about the way the Panthers go about their business, but it is definitely a group that lives up to that Rat King's moniker. So I'm excited to see it. I really am. You could see just in the little clip, there was trash talk. There was, I think it was Sam Bennett or Tkachuk. One of the two of them is screaming at the Maple Leafs, "How scared are you right now?" And it just kind of teases that you're going to see a little bit of that bully side of the Panthers, and I'm excited to see that a little bit behind the scenes.
Yeah, no doubt. And then there was one of there was a clip of Mitch Marner saying hit someone, and then someone brought up a stat of how many hits Mitch Marner had in 82 games, which is under 50. Which I got a little I laughed quite a bit when I saw that clip of that. So you're also going to see the rivalries really highlighted in this series once again. But also, it's funny. I like how you mentioned about the Panthers being the bullies of the NHL, about how they're seen. Obviously, when you win 2 in a row, you're not going to be very liked across fan bases and and for other teams. Which it's funny because the TSN had an interview between a conversation between Sam Reinhart and Brad Marchand. Which, crazy enough, Sam Reinhart was actually very familiar with Brad Marchand as far as being close to the situation in the 2011 Stanley Cup Final, when with Sam Reinhart growing up in West Vancouver. So he really got a chance to see how the fan base reacted to Brad Marchand going clutch in that series, but also discussed how in that same interview, saying from the most hated guy in the league to the most loved guy, and Brad Marchand spoke about, suspensions aren't going to necessarily help your case, which is funny because I think I never expected. I can't say that I'm surprised by that quote by Sam Reinhart about most hated guy to most loved guy. But the fact is that Marchand going to a two-time champion, I don't know if I necessarily believe that quote from him, because I hear it from different Locked On hosts, Evil Empire, no state income tax, all that jazz.
Yeah, I think the only place Brad Marchand is liked is here in Florida. I don't think, in Boston, of course, but I don't think he got to Florida and all of a sudden became sort of a fan favorite around the league. But he definitely is a fan favorite for us. I think what's most interesting about that whole storyline, Brad Marchand, his reputation is just it is what it is at this point. I don't think after all the years he spent in his career, I don't think he's going to change anyone else's perception of him. What's very interesting to me, and what I hope we get a glimpse at, is how the perception of him changed within the Panthers roster.
Yes,
because he was a very, very much hated player for the Panthers for a very long time. He's one of those guys who's always been a Panther killer in his career, and a couple of years of playing them in the playoffs, it definitely didn't help. He was not a very well liked guy on that Panthers roster at all. And it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic changed when he got traded to the team. And we've definitely seen how the Panthers embrace new additions, and they have a way of welcoming in guys and standing up for each other, and their team bond and camaraderie is second to none. But it's also Brad Marchand, and it'll just be really interesting to see how that sort of came together and how everyone sort of welcomed him into the team, given the history there, especially given the incident with Sam Bennett. But with that said, I'm also really interested to see what things looked like at Four Nations behind the scenes with those guys, because they ended up being line mates there, and everyone was already talking about how's this going to go after what happened last year in the playoffs. So maybe a little precursor to him being traded and knowing that could be a good culture fit. But it'll be really interesting to see how that looked behind the scenes.
No doubt. And especially Sam Reinhart texting Brad Marchand after the trade was announced, and then teasing with the eye emoji, and then Matthew Tkachuk pulling a fake trade saying Mackey and Lusto were going the other way. So a little bit of fun while it all went down. But you mentioned Brad Marchand and the Sam Bennett situation, which is actually going to tie a little bit into the next part of this conversation, and in segment number 2, where we'll discuss the playoff seeding. It's been a conversation in North American Media Tour and on Media Day this past last week. We're going to discuss our opinions and more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet, because player props, building a same-game parlay, and jumping in live as the action unfolds is definitely very beneficial on FanDuel, and it makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy matchup. Quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy on Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, September 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Armando Velez here with Jacob Winans on another edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And Jacob, we I've been looking forward to see what center ice was going to look like this season. So I'm gonna full screen this tweet from the Florida Panthers socials here, and a little bit of a difference from last year to this year. The only main difference is the details of the cup are not gold. It's going to be a different shade of red, which is the slogan that they had for last year's postseason, Rain Red. I was hoping that it was going to be more blue in the background to represent the ocean and the fact that they're in South Florida. But I'm not mad about this design neither.
No, I like it. I think it's a good little sequel to what they had on the ice last year. I don't think they really needed to go in and make a ton of changes. I like the way it's sort of an evolution of what they already had versus going with a completely new concept. So yeah, I'm a fan of it. I like the way the red looks.
Yeah, same here. So and also fans on Monday will get an opportunity to see the new scoreboard for the Panthers when the Panthers do take on the Carolina Hurricanes. So which David Rodriguez of the FLA Cats hockey podcast was somebody sent him a photo of the scoreboard being put up there at Emirates Bank Arena. But let's continue the discussion about what players have been discussing the last few weeks about playoffs and wanting to go back to 1 through 8. So the biggest criticism that I had about the format last year is that every single matchup for the Panthers were rematches of previous playoff series. Tampa Bay they faced before, Carolina they faced before, Toronto and Edmonton, a rematch of the final. So yeah, you create rivalries, but then it becomes stale. Yeah, Edmonton has faced LA 4 years in a row in the first round. Colorado has seen Dallas multiple times in multiple years. So that's another thing about the playoff format that's a little flawed. And also, games 78 through 82 is really where it becomes it's a lot of players resting. Yeah, you want to get ready for the most important part of the year. But that's because most of the playoff series are locked in. And 2024, if it were 1 through 8, first round wouldn't change for the Panthers, but their second round opponent would have changed as far as facing the winner of Carolina, New York. So that's a different and tying into what you said about Brad Marchand and Sam Bennett and Sam Bennett delivering that blow to the head of Marchand. That doesn't happen under 1 through 8. Maybe there's a little bit of a different storyline there. And also the David Pastrnak, Matthew Tkachuk fight doesn't happen from game 2. In 2025, the Panthers would have been the 5th seed facing off against the Carolina Hurricanes and then would face the winner of Washington, Montreal. So, but you would get in the first round, Toronto versus New Jersey, Sheldon Keefe versus his old team. So I just think, and the mindset that the commissioner's office is having is, rivalries and also the casual viewers, the peak interest of the playoffs is in round 1, which I get. It doesn't really suit us because we're going to watch every single round no matter what of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I just think that the build up to it is also very important as well, which is why I'm in favor of the 1 through 8.
Yeah, I'm also a fan of the 1 through 8. I think it's definitely time for them to go to that model. Reason being, I don't want the first round to end up becoming stale or just a repeat of what you see every year. And that's really the main thing for me. I think the way it's worked now, we've had a chance to establish some rivalries. I think those rivalries are going to be what they are. And I don't think there's anything. I don't think another first round between the Panthers and the Lightning is going to make them hate each other any more or any less.
Mm-hmm.
Been there, done that. They hate each other. They're always going to hate each other. It's a rivalry, and they strongly dislike playing against each other, and that's just the way it's going to be. Same for Ottawa and Toronto. Same for Boston and Toronto. Same for Edmonton and LA. Like those rivalries are not going anywhere. Especially given the amount of times they play each other in the regular season. You can get your rivalry fixed there, and that's not to say these are teams that won't meet up in the playoffs. They of course the best of the best are going to meet each other in the playoffs. That's the way it goes. And I think it also just sort of gives a chance to build up to a rivalry, because I think Tampa's team, for example, last year, if they don't play the Panthers in the first round, I think Tampa makes a deep run.
Yes,
And I think the Panthers and the Lightning might end up meeting each other anyway in the playoffs. And I think it'd be pretty cool to get to see a rivalry matchup in a conference final versus in a first round.
Yes.
Can you imagine Panthers versus Lightning with the spot in the Stanley Cup final on the line? With the current format, we're very unlikely to see that unless one of the two teams ends up as a wild card and has to run through the Metro side. And that can absolutely happen. It's just you greatly reduce your odds of seeing a higher stakes rivalry matchup. And I'd like to give that a chance. I would love to see a Panthers Lightning conference final. On the Western Conference side, LA, I think, also could have made a deeper run last year. LA versus Edmonton in a conference final situation could be really, really cool. I think, yeah, I would sacrifice a little bit more of the. I would definitely sacrifice more of the first round guaranteed rivalry matchups for the chance at seeing a higher stakes rivalry matchup. That would be worth it to me to switch to 1 through 8.
Yeah, and I think of the second place in the division for every single division, how if you're the second best team in the actual conference, well, maybe it could do a way of, okay, one or the first two seeds are automatic. If you win the division, you're automatically 1 or 2 seed, and then the rest is 3 to 8 in this situation. But if you're second in the division, you're kind of in a little bit of no man's land. What if the third place in the division is actually worthy of being in the top 4 in the regular format, but then you're facing them in the first round, when in a normal year you would face in a normal 1 through 8, you would be facing a third place team in the other division. I'm talking about if a second place team were to be in the Atlantic versus a third place team in the Metro, or even the second place team in the other division. In the case of, and we do believe that the Atlantic division is the stronger of the two in the Eastern Conference. So you never know if the Panthers in this case, I mean, I would project either Carolina to be the division favorite in the Metro. What if the Panthers finish like second in the division, and then okay, the Rangers are second in the Metro, and then but then they are it would be between them being second or third. They would face the teams in like a 6 or 7. But there's also that situation where the third place team could be better than the second place team in the other one, so that could create Panthers versus Rangers as well in round 1. So I just think of taking that possibility away. And once again, like I emphasize, there would be more movement in the last few week of the season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And yeah, like you said, some of these matchups that we've seen that the Panthers have had in conference finals of late, I think would be better served as early round matchups. And that's no disrespect to the Rangers, no disrespect to the Hurricanes. Those are teams that, in my opinion, were lesser opponents or lesser matchups than Tampa, lesser matchups than a really strong Boston team 2 years in a row, lesser matchups than a very strong Tampa team 2 years in a row, who, as much as I hate the Tampa Bay Lightning, that is a team that is much better than a back-to-back first-round exit against the Panthers. That's a team that, like any other opponent, they're making a deeper run. And I don't think it devalues the conference final necessarily, but at the same time, it's almost like you get through the Atlantic Gauntlet and you're going to be the heavy favorite to beat the Metro side. And this sort of thing changes over the years. One conference or one division is just going to have periods where they're stronger than the other. But I would much rather see a matchup in a conference final with real implications on rivalries, with real, I won't say hatred, but it kind of is. I would rather see a matchup in the conference final where the two teams really hate each other, and I don't I don't think the Panthers have that much of a rivalry with the Rangers. Maybe after the Winter Classic this year, maybe that ticks up. I don't know. I don't think they have a real hatred with the Carolina Hurricanes. Those are two teams that play each other really hard.
They don't even have a nationally televised game between the two this season, by the way. Florida and Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that storyline changes a little bit with two conference final losses for Carolina, and then the exchange between Paul Maurice and Rod Brindamore after the fact. I doubt it. There's some history there with Paul Maurice and the Hurricanes, of course, but it's just you get to the conference final and it seems like the storylines and the buildup sort of drops off a little bit, versus if you go 1 through 8, it can be more of a steady build to a potential huge rivalry matchup with a spot on the Stanley Cup on the line, instead of huge rivalry matchup right off the bat. You get through that, and now it's like it's a little less exciting. It's a little bit lower stakes when it comes to the storylines off the ice necessarily, and not lower stakes to the players. Of course, everyone wants to play in the Stanley Cup final, but the fans may not be as invested in those matchups.
No doubt. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss the cuts that the Panthers made to their training camp roster and what to expect out of tonight. We'll discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment number 3 here on this Wednesday, September 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday, a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. So the Panthers have cut their training camp roster down to 55, 34 forwards, 15 defensemen, and 6 goaltenders. Sandis Vilmanis was back on the ice in a yellow non-contact sweater yesterday after getting hurt in the prospect showcase out in Wesley Chapel. So thank goodness that he is all right. But the following cuts that the Panthers have made: assigned to Charlotte, Riley Hughes, Robert Master Simone, Christophe Tellier, Nicholas Zabinet, Michael Vandy Sompel, Eamon Powell, Dennis Chisana, and goaltender Michael Simpson. Released for PTO, but reported to Charlotte: Daniel Walcott, Josh Lupina, Fip Waugh, Andy Waleski. Released from their PTO: Cole Krieger. And then sent to junior/NCAA, Shea Bush, Shamar Moses, and Carson Cameron. So Panthers take on the Hurricanes tonight from the Lenovo Center, and also more chances that some of these PTO guys will be getting, as far as a Tyler Mott, Noah Gregor, and Hunter Johannes for the Panthers here. So it's also an opportunity to see who's going to be the 8th defenseman as well, who's going to be that first call-up. Tobias Bjornfoot played in the doubleheader, which I got to remind myself that he changed his number from number 4 to 22 now that Ben Harper has it. He's currently on a PTO. But also there's pressure on Ben Harper as well for the Panthers to take a chance on him to be part of the mix. But who knows, he could possibly be released from the PTO and signed to an AHL deal as well. So a lot of the guys who are going to be playing tonight are guys who have had experience in pro hockey, but not always necessarily NHL experience. Guys who have been in Charlotte for 1 or 2 years now, and also I'm the fact that Ludvig Jansson has played pro hockey in Sweden and now coming over to North America. He's not one of the first round of cuts, so I'm very happy to see that he's getting possibly going to get another game. So when you look at these cuts, Jacob, what are the first thoughts that come to your mind?
Well, obviously I didn't see any surprises there as far as the guys who were sent back to junior or the NCAA or just cut and sent to Charlotte. Yeah, no surprises, but I do like sending some of those veteran guys who were very unlikely to make the final roster. I like sending them back to Charlotte early, allow them to get a full camp there in Charlotte and sort of get accustomed, because the Panthers are going to definitely be relying on a lot of veteran players there for the Checkers this year. Mm-hmm. As we know, the Panthers prospect pool is not super deep right now. There's not a ton of really high-end talents in the prospect pipeline. So for Charlotte to be good and competitive again, as they were last year, making it to the finals, having a group of really good veterans and guys who have been around the AHL down there is going to be very helpful. So a couple of those guys are guys I'm excited to see in Charlotte. I think there's also a couple of guys in that group that I think will will go deeper in Panthers camps in the coming years. I think Shamar Moses, he had a tough game against Nashville. I think he's a guy who fits the culture really well, the way the Panthers want to play. I think he's going to have a deeper run in training camp next year. I think a couple of those guys will, and I'm excited to see them back. But yeah, get guys to the teams they're going to be playing with early, allow them to establish themselves there, and yeah, it's there's a lot of teams and a lot of players that are looking to have success and build their games in other places. So don't hold them back from it when they don't have a realistic chance of playing on the Panthers this year.
And we're gonna get another game of the big three for the Panthers prospect pool. Grayson Sachin, Jack Devine, Hunter St. Martin once again. So that's another exciting development that we are going to see there for the Panthers. But but also this roster that they're going to put on tonight are going to be guys who not on their ELCs, but guys who have been on the waiver wire multiple times. Of Jack Studnicka as well is likely going to be playing tonight for the Panthers as they take on the Carolina Hurricanes. But also one guy I'm also looking forward to see how he possibly fits in the future for the Panthers is defenseman Trevor Carrick. He's listed at 6'2", but he looked humongous on the ice from what I've seen, and also he got 50 points as a left shot defenseman last year in Charlotte, running mostly the power play last year for the Checkers. So that's another player that I'm really looking forward to seeing. Obviously, I'm always looking forward to Mikolas Havorka, 6'6", right shot D. Mike Benning, who had a great game second game for the Panthers in that doubleheader, scoring the 2 goals in the third period. So I'm really also looking forward to the D core for what the Panthers will be putting on tonight.
Yeah, Trevor Carrick's an interesting one. He's a longtime veteran, has played a ton of games in the AHL, and is a really good two-way guy. But at the AHL level, plays a tremendous amount of power play and does a great job on the offensive side of things for a D-man. So be interesting to see if he can open some eyes in camp, or if we obviously expect him to be a Charlotte Checker again. But he's a guy who could make a case for captaining that Charlotte team, and I think he's also a good guy to have in the pipeline. You got to remember, a lot of these guys who may not play for the Panthers or ultimately aren't in the Panthers' long-term plans, they're such important culture fits because of the way they help to develop players that will be part of the Panthers' future. And immediately coming to mind is Zach Delpy.
Yes.
Guy who he absolutely contributed here and there with the Panthers and scored a massive goal in the series against the Bruins. But outside of that goal, his biggest contribution to the Panthers was the way he helped to develop some of the talent that the Panthers put through the AHL. The impact he had on guys like Mackie Samoskevich, the impacts he had on guys like Justin Sordiff, who ended up being traded to the Capitals, but he's an NHL talent. It's very similar for guys like Carrick, those veterans who you send down, and you sort of trust them to help the development of your future guys. But yeah, I'm excited to see a couple of the right shot D-men. Havorka is a guy the Panthers seem really high on. He made it deep into camp last year, had a great season in the AHL. Sort of fits the build and the mold of what the Panthers like to do. Definitely excited to see Mike Benning again. He had a fantastic game. Had a great season last year. Was huge in the Checkers run to the Calder Cup final, and then opens his camp with a huge 2-goal performance against Nashville. If he wasn't already opening eyes, he definitely is now. So we'll see how far he's able to take it in the camp. And of course, like you said, the 3 forwards, Jack Devine is the guy I'm most excited about in that trio after his ridiculously good college career. Hunter St. Martin had a fantastic camp last year, earned himself an ELC. We'll see what he does this year. And Grayson Sachin. Sachin is a 2nd-round pick, but St. Martin and Devine, you get those guys in the 6th round and the 7th round for a team that's trying to keep the cup window open. Hitting on picks like that is unbelievably vital. So I think I'm really excited to see what those guys bring for the rest of camp.
Yeah, and we will definitely see what they are able to do in this game for the Florida Panthers. Once again, it's going to be the non guys that were on the back-to-back team and see who might give themselves a case for the final cuts, or maybe some of the first call-ups this season in the case of an injury for the Panthers. So hey, it's hockey. I'll take that over talking about stories non-related to a game. So very excited once again for the Panthers to take the ice tonight from the Lenovo Center. But Jacob, thank you once again for joining me on another edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. If you want to follow him online, you can follow him at JakeW_8. Jacob, any final words before we sign up Livingstone and Steel Roden and Locked On AHL Prospects? Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.